It started on a quiet afternoon, one of those routine filming days where nothing unusual was supposed to happen. The crew was tired, the set was busy, and the energy was the same as every other long working day. But behind the scenes, in a small dressing room at the far end of the hallway, something unexpected unfolded, something the staff would whisper about for days. The dressing rooms were usually shared spaces during rush hours, but on this particular day, the team had assigned Lena and Miu to separate rooms because of their conflicting schedules. There was no reason for them to cross paths, no scene to rehearse together, and no promotional shoot requiring their presence at the same time. Everything about the schedule kept them apart. So when the staff discovered the two actresses alone together in a locked dressing room, the whispers began instantly. It wasn't the first time, and that's what made it stranger. Earlier in the week, they had accidentally been found together in a storage room, sitting a little closer than necessary, talking in low voices. The incident had been brushed off as a coincidence. But this time there was no explanation waiting at the surface. No script, no rehearsal, no costume check, nothing. It all began around 4 p.m. when Miu finished filming earlier than expected. She was exhausted, her mind overwhelmed from an intense emotional scene. Her assistant was supposed to guide her to the resting lounge, but a sudden production emergency pulled the assistant away. Left alone in the hallway, Miu walked slowly, breathing deeply, feeling herself slipping into a loneliness she didn't want to acknowledge. There was only one person on her mind. Lena. They hadn't spoken much that day. Miu noticed the distance growing between them again, a quiet tension neither addressed but both felt. After the unscripted moment on set weeks earlier, the one that left everyone stunned, things had shifted. They were closer, yes, but also more aware of each other. Too aware. And that awareness made every interaction feel heavier, sharper, louder. So Miu walked down the corridor, unsure why her footsteps took her in that direction. But when she reached Lena's dressing room door, she hesitated. The hallway was empty. No cameras, no staff, no voices. Just silence. She lifted her hand to knock, then froze. Inside the room, she heard something, a soft sigh, a chair shifting, the quiet rustle of fabric. Without thinking, she turned the doorknob gently. It wasn't locked. The door opened slowly, and there was Lena, sitting on the small couch, her head lowered, her eyes closed as if she were fighting something inside herself. Not sadness, something else, something heavier. When she noticed the door open, she looked up. Their eyes met. Neither spoke for a moment. The silence between them was so familiar, so intense, that it almost felt like coming home. Lena didn't ask why Miu was there. Miu didn't explain. The tension in the room softened instantly, like both of them had been waiting for this exact moment. Miu stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Just like that, they were alone again. Lena gave a small smile, but it wasn't her usual confident one. It was the type of smile she tried to hide when something was bothering her. Miu recognized it immediately. Minutes passed like seconds. They didn't speak, but their presence said everything. Miu finally sat beside her, not too close, but close enough that Lena could feel the warmth of her shoulder. Lena kept her eyes down, twisting the edge of her sleeve, a nervous habit she didn't show to many people. Miu asked quietly, "Rough day?" Lena nodded, but didn't elaborate. Then, after another moment of silence, Lena whispered, "Everyone thinks I'm fine all the time." Miu knew exactly what she meant. Being strong was an expectation, not a choice. And Lena, with her commanding aura and sharp presence, carried a weight that the public never saw. Miu placed her hand over Lena's without thinking. It was a gentle touch, a reassurance, but it lingered longer than a friendly gesture should. Lena didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hands slowly, letting their palms meet. The room felt smaller instantly, the air heavier, the distance between their breaths almost non-existent. This was the exact moment a staff member happened to walk down the hall. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. They realized they hadn't seen Lena or Miu in a while. The filming assistant was supposed to bring Lena back for a retake, but she wasn't in her assigned waiting room. Curious, the staff member knocked lightly on the dressing room door. There was no answer. Another gentle knock. Still nothing. So they opened the door slowly, assuming the room was empty. But what they saw made them freeze. Lena and Miu sitting together on the couch, too close, their hands touching, their bodies angled toward each other. Not speaking, just looking, really looking, like they were in the middle of a moment too intimate to interrupt. The staff member's breath caught. They immediately backed out and closed the door silently, pretending they had seen nothing. But silence doesn't last long in a production environment. By the next hour, whispers spread among the makeup team, the lighting crew, the stylists. They were alone again. The door was closed this time. They looked different. This isn't just friendship. Something is happening between them. None of these rumors were spoken loudly, but they circulated with an energy that made everyone hyper-aware of each interaction between Lena and Miu. When the two actresses finally exited the dressing room, they came out separately, 5 minutes apart, as if they knew eyes were watching. Lena looked calm, composed, unfazed. Miu looked softer, more vulnerable, as though leaving that room took effort she hadn't expected. But the staff noticed something unmistakable. Their hands. Both of them kept touching their palms, as if remembering a feeling they weren't supposed to share. The director asked where Lena had been. She answered with a practiced smile, just resting. Miu said nothing at all, but their silence said everything staff needed to know, and the mystery deepened, because this wasn't the first time they'd been found alone. And now everyone wondered, why do they always end up together? Why only behind closed doors? Why do they look at each other differently afterward? And what exactly is happening between Lena and Miu when the cameras stop rolling? After the dressing room incident, something shifted on set. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was unmistakable. The whispers didn't stop, they grew. Every crew member suddenly became hyper-aware of every move Lena and Miu made. But the two actresses, they pretended not to notice. Or maybe they genuinely didn't. Maybe they were too focused on something else, something neither of them dared to acknowledge out loud. For the next few days, their interactions changed in subtle ways. Not obvious enough to draw attention, but obvious enough for the people who had been paying attention already. Lena had always been guarded, controlled, the type of person who rarely let her emotions show. But after that moment with Miu, something softened in her. Her voice gentler around her. Her eyes lingering a second longer. Her smile warming in a way that didn't appear in front of anyone else. Meanwhile, Miu, usually calm and collected, looked more distracted. During breaks, she caught herself glancing at the hallway, checking if Lena was around. When their scenes together ended, she stayed a beat longer, waiting to see if Lena would approach her. And Lena always did. It was never planned, never scheduled, never spoken about. But somehow, they always found themselves in the same corners, the same hallways, the same quiet spaces between takes. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. But the silence between them kept deepening, becoming heavier, more meaningful, harder to ignore. Still, both pretended everything was normal. The director noticed first. During a rehearsal, he watched the two actresses perform a simple argument scene. The lines were straightforward, the emotions controlled. But when Lena stepped closer to Miu, closer than the scene required, the director saw something flicker between them. Something unscripted. A hesitation, a breath, a tension that didn't belong in the scene. He adjusted the blocking to separate them, just slightly. But even then, even from a distance, the emotional pull between them was undeniable. He didn't comment on it, but the look he gave the assistant director afterwards said everything. Something was happening, and it wasn't in the script. The makeup team noticed too. During a touch-up session, Miu sat quietly in the corner while Lena was having her hair styled across the room. Normally, they didn't interact in these moments. It was routine, boring, silent. But that day, something strange happened. Miu was staring, not casually, not subtly. She was completely focused on Lena, her profile, her expression, the small details she seemed unable to look away from. A stylist whispered, "Is she okay?" Another replied quietly, "I think she's looking at Lena." They watched discreetly. Every time Lena laughed at a joke the hairstylist made, Miu's eyes softened. Every time Lena tilted her head, Miu's breath caught slightly, and when Lena accidentally glanced in Miu's direction, Miu looked away quickly, too quickly. Lena noticed. Her lips curved just slightly, and for a moment, the room felt too small. The stylists exchanged knowing glances. This wasn't normal, not professional, not friendly. It was something deeper. But the real turning point came 3 days later. Filming ran late into the night. The studio was almost empty except for a few technicians packing equipment and a janitor sweeping the floor. Lena finished her last scene and headed toward the hallway to grab her coat. She thought she was alone. The building was quiet. Most of the cast had left hours earlier. She opened the door to her dressing room and froze. Miu was sitting inside, alone, hands clasped, eyes distant. Lena stepped in slowly. "What are you doing here?" Miu didn't answer at first. She looked tired, emotionally tired, not physically. Her guard was down, her expression soft in a way Lena had only seen once before. Finally, Miu exhaled. "I didn't want to go home yet." Lena's voice softened. "Why not?" Miu hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Because when I'm alone lately, I think too much." Lena closed the door behind her, locking it without realizing. "What do you think about?" Miu swallowed hard. "You." The word hung in the air like a weight neither of them could escape. Lena's heart stopped. Her breath stilled. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't pretend she hadn't heard what she heard. Miu continued, her voice trembling for the first time. "I don't know when it started. I don't know how. But every time I try to keep distance, something keeps pulling me back to you." Lena took a slow step forward. "And I don't know what to do anymore." There it was, the confession Miu had been running from. The confession Lena had been trying to ignore. Lena sat beside her, closer than she intended, her voice barely above a whisper. "Miu, you're not the only one." Miu looked up sharply, surprised. Lena continued, quieter now, almost afraid of her own truth. "I keep trying to tell myself it's nothing, that we're just close because of work, that what happened on set, what happened here." She paused, didn't mean anything. Miu's eyes softened, just a bit. "But every time I look at you," Lena admitted, "I feel like I'm lying." The room felt electric, warm, dangerous. Miu whispered, "So what do we do now?" Lena inhaled slowly. "I don't know." A beat passed, "But I know I don't want to pretend anymore." Their eyes met. The air thickened. Something in the room shifted permanently. And that's when it happened. A sudden, urgent knock on the door. Both froze. A staff member called from outside. "Lena? Are you still in there? We need to lock the floor." Panic flashed between them. Another closed-door moment. Another misunderstanding waiting to explode. Another secret they weren't ready to explain. Lena stood, heart racing, and opened the door just enough to speak with the staff. But when she turned back, Miu was still sitting on the couch, staring at her. Not with fear, not with regret, but with something Lena recognized instantly. A choice, and now they both had to decide. Were they ready to face what was happening, or were they going to run from it again? If you want, I can continue with a deeper confession, a moment where they almost get exposed, Miu pulling away out of fear, or Lena making the first bold move,